Welcome to the Chiricahua-Peloncillo Historical Society April 12th meeting. I'm Winston Lewis. I am the current president. I live in Paradise and my family roots go way back up there. And I can tell you more about that outside of this presentation. We want to get right to Bill Cavaliere, former Deputy Sheriff of Hidalgo County. And he's going to be presenting the violent past of the New Mexico boot heel. One of the questions that was asked a long time ago is, what is the difference between a historian and a history buff? A history buff is like me. I share lore and legend. Bill is a historian. He gets into the facts and does the research. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill as he tells us about the violent past of the New Mexico's boot heel. Over
Thank
to
you, Winston. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's really good to see so many people from the boot heel. I've seen quite a few of them. And at first I was really pleased to see that until one of them told me they're all here just to see I'm going to talk about their families, you know. So no skeletons in the closet. Paul's getting all ready here. We ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead then. And he's going to be changing my slides. I'm going to point to you. So today we'll refer to him as Vanna White. Okay. This, of course, is the state of New Mexico. It is the fifth largest state in the United States. And it was admitted to the Union in 1912, just a few months before Arizona. And then when Arizona was admitted in 1912, that completed the continental lower 48 states. Again, it's the fifth largest state, which a lot of people aren't aware of, okay? And this is the boot heel in New Mexico, Hidalgo County. Hidalgo County was formed in 1919. The people who lived in Animas and Lordsburg and Rodeo were complaining because this was Grant County, and they had to go all the way to Silver City to go to their county seat. So they complained, and the state legislature went ahead and annexed this part off, and that became Hidalgo County. One of the names, Ina Mitchell, who I spoke with years ago, who was a great historian in her own right, told me that she remembered as a little girl that one of the names for Hidalgo County almost chosen was Pyramid County because of the pyramid. Rick, she was your aunt, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, did you know, did she tell you that?
My great aunt.
Your great aunt, yeah.
In more than one way.
Yeah, she was great. She was a great person. 1919, that's when the legislature decided to do it. So on January 1st, 1920, Hidalgo County started its first day. The county is 3,500 square miles, about the size of Connecticut, and it has 86 miles of Mexican border, okay, including the only surveyed Mexican border line that runs north and south in the whole Mexican border from the Pacific to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, here we have a close-up of Hidalgo County. Most of you know the county and been there. It's right next door. You have Rodeo right about here, and Road Forks, Animas. There's Lordsburg, the county seat, the only incorporated town in the entire county, and Verdun up there to the north. Now, when they were forming Hidalgo County out of Grant, there were two railroad lines, a Southern Pacific here, and then a spur line here to the south, which was the El Paso and Southwestern. And the people in Grant County didn't want to lose the railroads. So they insisted that part of the county come down and encompass those two railroads, which only one is in existence now. So back when I was a sheriff, we in law enforcement, the Border Patrol used to refer that as Baja Grant County. All right, now let's get talking about the violent past of the boot heel of New Mexico. We're going to start off in 1889 with Frank Cady. Now, Frank Cady was killed by Apaches. Who knows what year Geronimo and Nietzsche, the Chiricahua Apaches, surrendered? This should be some of you that you know.
1886.
1886. So how could they have been killed by Apaches in 1889? They were killed by the Bronco Apaches. And I'll get into detail about the Bronco Apaches because they show up a couple times here. Okay, let's look where Frank Cady was killed. There's got to be a red star in the location of each one of these. Could you see mine in your way? I was told to stand right about here. I didn't realize I'm blocking some of you. Okay, that was what was called the Culberson Ranch. It's now part of the Gray Ranch. Frank Cady had his homestead, an adobe house. He was cooking on his wood stove, and he had the stove burning pretty hot. And the Bronco Apaches, these are the Apaches who did not surrender. There were a few that it's kind of a long story. Some of them on the way from Skeleton Canyon after the surrender took several days to walk to Fort Bowie. During the middle of the night, they changed their mind and they escaped. I also think that there were probably some in the Sierra Madres who didn't even know about the surrender. And these became the nucleus of what we call the Bronco Apaches. And like I said, I'll be getting into them again. So this is 3 years after the official surrender. And the Apaches would watch a ranch house and wait for the person to leave and then break in and steal, and that's how they survived. But if there was only one person there and they were really desperate or really hungry, they would kill the person. They shot Frank Cady through the knees and he dropped down still alive. Now, this is the homestead, what's left of it, the ruins are still there. Like I said, it's on the southern end of the Gray Ranch, what was called the Culberson Place. Here's another shot of it. You can see it was kind of a substantial, kind of a long building. Now, after Frank Cady was shot, the Apaches stripped him, still alive, and cooked him on the stove. Well, this is the violent past. So they actually laid him on the stove alive until he died. Now, when I said cooked him, they didn't eat him. They just killed him that way. Now, my friend Bernd Kuhn, a historian from Sweden, was there at the Culberson. I've been there several times, and he found this piece of a wood stove at the homestead. This might be an actual part of the stove where Frank Cady was met his demise. Now, not long after he was killed, there was a newspaper, a magazine called the Police Gazette. And the Police Gazette in the 1880s was kind of like our National Enquirer, okay? And they liked all of the lurid stories, that had all the violence and gore and sex and stuff like that. Now up here you can see there's a man with an axe and he's going to kill this man sitting here. And there's a story about that. And over here there's this scantily clad lady riding on back of 2 horses in a circus, and doing her thing. And up here, could you see Frank Cady lying on a stove with his arm hanging down? And here's these Apaches gleefully dancing around him. Let's take a close-up of that.
Who took that picture?
Okay. Now, the Police Gazette was published in New York City. Chiricahua Apaches didn't wear feathers in their hair. Yeah. And they didn't have tomahawks like these eastern tribes did. Well, I guess there were, a lot of different tribes had them around the country, but they did not have tomahawks. Yeah, well, I hear that a lot. They said, why is he wearing high heels? That's actually one big moccasin with a stripe on it. I thought it looked like a Reebok, but anyway, I do get questioned about that. So Frank Cady, and it was, if you read the fine print under it, it has his main name is spelled, says Cody. He made in that incident, made the Police Gazette. Very little known incident, okay? I've only seen it published maybe 2 times, okay? Frank Evans, 1907. He was a cowboy on a ranch with, originally was called the Everhart Ranch, south of Hachita in the Boot Heel. And I've researched this and I really can't find out a whole lot of information about it. Now, 1907, even though it was in Hidalgo County now, keep in mind, this would have been Grant County back then. So I need to get to Silver City and go through their back issues of the newspapers to see if they have anything about Frank Evans. I don't know what was the nucleus of it, what caused this to happen, but Frank Evans was murdered by the cook and the chuck wagon. And the reason the way he was murdered, the cook got an axe and chopped him in the head with it. Now, I don't know if the cook's food was that bad. I don't know the reason, and that's why I still need to research this. But his tombstone is the neatest tombstone you'll ever find. The tombstone, okay, there he is, right here again where the border runs north and south. And if you are standing with your back to the Mexican border fence, you take one step in, and that's where the tombstone is. So unfortunately, smugglers cut the barbed wire there, and when they drive over, they would drive over parts of the tombstone. It was just concrete, just a poured slab of concrete, and would try to read. Fortunately, I was able to see it before it was ruined, before the smugglers cut the fence. This was years ago, like in the 1980s, but it said, Frank Evans, born, and you can see part of that's broken off, June 12, 1865, killed here May 1st, 1907 by a crazy cook. Murdered in cold blood with an axe. Mark by Deafy, that's D-E-A-F-Y. And underneath it, it said like, as good a man as ever lived, or as good as a man ever, I can't remember exactly what it said under it. It's too bad that it wasn't photographed in its complete state. So, like I said, I had to get to Silver City and do some research to see the papers back there if it has anything about this murder. But I have a clue, Deafy, D-E-A-F-Y. So I talked to one of Malin Eberhardt's cowboys one time. I said, you don't know anything about Deafy? Oh, yeah, Deafy. I said, oh, great. What was his real name? I don't know. It was always Deafy, you know. He couldn't hear. He was hard of hearing, so they called him Deafy. So, several years ago, my friend Norman Wright loaned me a book. And it's an out-of-print book, a rare book called Heartbeats of Colonia Diaz. Colonia Diaz was a Mormon community in Mexico, not too far from south of the border. And during the Mexican Revolution, the Mormons are being persecuted, and also they had this big exodus where they left the town and they all moved up into Hidalgo County. First settled east of Hachita in what they call Poverty Flat. Anyway, I was reading this book, and Heartbeats of Colonia Diaz, written by one of the Mormons on the Exodus, and she wrote all about these wonderful LDS members, all these, and she mentioned this guy and that guy and this one, and she mentioned Ezra Snow. And Ezra Snow was a wonderful guy. He was real hard of hearing, but he was a real nice guy. And he did things like he went up and poured a tombstone for Frank Evans. And he was so hard of hearing, they called him Deafy. And there was a picture of him, so I finally found out who Deafy is. Still don't know the details behind the murder. Okay. Bill and Alice Parker. This is a really sad one. Okay. This happened just north of where, what was it, Katie, Frank Katie was killed on the Culberson Ranch. This is in the lower end, the very south end of the Animas Mountains. And there's a canyon there to this day that's called Parker Canyon, named after Bill and Alice Parker. And Bill and Alice Parker had what would be considered the fairy tale life. They got married and they were young and they had a little ranch and they had a bright future ahead of them, okay? Now, Bill Parker had a Mexican worker who was employed by him for quite a while. And his name was Andreas Valenzuela. Now, Andreas Valenzuela's father was a pretty mean hombre. Andreas Valenzuela's father was wanted for murder, both in the United States and Mexico. And he was in hiding. He was on the run. Every once in a while, he would come up out of Mexico to Bill and Alice Parker's ranch to see his son, Andreas. Well, Bill Parker wanted to put a stop to that. And he told Andreas, he said, look, I don't want your father coming here anymore. He said, if he comes here, I'm going to call the law. But I just wanted to stop. Well, that proved to be Bill and Alice Parker's undoing. Let's go ahead to the next one. This is the southern end of the Animas Mountains. It's Parker Canyon, right over there. The homestead is still there, and there's a beautiful rock corral that I'm just, every time I see it, I'm just in awe at that. It's such a good shape, and you know how the quality of construction. So Bill Parker was out doing his chores, and Andreas broke into his house and got his hunting rifle. And the next day, they found Bill Parker laid out on the ground, shot, and Alice was dead and shot lying over him. Apparently, she saw him get shot, and she ran over, and then he shot her in the back, and she slumped over, and they found him like that, okay? There was a big manhunt. I have a list of all the names of everybody who was involved in this posse, probably a lot of kin to some of the people in this room, no doubt. And they all went into Mexico and searched for days and days, and they were never able to find Andres Valenzuela. Well, there was another Mexican man who worked in that valley south of Hachita. By the way, this gravestone is in the Hachita Cemetery. And I haven't been able to find his name, just people have told me about him. And he was just the opposite of Andreas. He was a really hard worker, a really good man, had really good morals. And he went up to Bill Crabom, Alice's father, and he said to him, I know Andreas. He said he's got a weakness. He loves beautiful horses. And he said, let me go down to Mexico for a while, see if I can find him. And they hatched a plan. We'll say that at the Culberson Ranch, where Frank Cady was killed, we'll say that they just got in a herd of thoroughbreds and just really blooded horses, really beautiful animals. He won't be able to resist that. And I'll give you a signal, and you guys wait there. So they had this plan. They promised to keep it quiet. They did not let one word getting out. The problem is that they kept it quiet. Now, that sounds unusual, but what happened was the Mexican worker goes down into Mexico and he locates Andres Valenzuela. And he tells him about these horses, and Valenzuela just falls for it. Let's go. It's close to the border. I could get the horses. So they're going up to the border, and it's at night, and they're getting ready to cross. Well, remember I said they kept it too quiet. A lot of well-meaning people back then were out looking for Andres Valenzuela. They thought he would come back into the United States to work. And they're getting ready to cross, and here comes some headlights, probably a Model T, something back then. Somebody who didn't know about the plan. And Andreas said, I don't like this. Something's going on. He turned and left. The other Mexican came up and said, we came that close to catching him. Andres Valenzuela was never caught. So this is the tombstone of Bill and Alice Parker in the Hachita Cemetery. You can see the same dates of death, that 1916, a very tragic incident. Okay. Andrew Peterson. Now this was the Peterson Ranch. Later on was purchased by Malin Eberhard. I mentioned Malin Eberhard and Diffie and all that. That takes place. Let's take a look where this happened. Okay, right along the north-south border. Now, 1917. What was going on in Mexico in 1917? The revolution. Okay, a lot of upheaval. Andrew Peterson, a second cowboy. His last name was Jensen, and a third, who I can't call the third one's name. Rick, do you know any?
I should, but I
Yeah. Anyway, the three of them were found not only dead but mutilated, and just cut up and all that terribly. And right away there was the assumption that it was had to do with the Mexican Revolution. It turned out it was just regular Mexican banditos. They robbed them of all their money and anything valuable, and they cut them up and all that, maybe to make it look like it was revolutionaries, but they were eventually caught and it was just bandits. Okay, now, oh wait, how did we get to the end of it? Can we go back there somewhere?
Yes, we can go way back.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to go way back. Keep going back. Yeah, everybody close your eyes. Yeah. We got a lot of going back to do. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, keep going, keep going. We're almost there. Keep going. Now, keep going. Yeah. Okay, this is the, yeah. All right, we're back to where we were. So they had the funeral for the three cowboys. Okay, now go ahead and do the next one. And you could see the three coffins. And this is right there where they were murdered, right? Not too far from the border, the north-south border. It's not a cemetery. And they decided to bury them where they found them. You could see the priest there and this cowboy. I don't know if he's a relation. He's standing at the center coffin with his hand on it. And this is a real sad one. Mrs. Peterson crying over her son's coffin. Now, they didn't know yet if it was revolutionaries, if it was these Mexican revolutionaries or who. So they wanted this cemetery protected. So they had a lot of security, you could call it there. And not just standing, but mounted too. Go ahead. Yeah, this cemetery or gravesite was completely ringed with cowboys, armed cowboys, and they meant business. Now, the headstones of those were originally poured concrete as well with the names on them. Now, when Eberhard put the ranch up for sale, the same Peterson family bought it. Now, they had it again after this period in between of Eberhard ownership. So now the Petersons had it, and what they did was they had 3 really beautiful granite professional headstones made up, and they put them on the graves. And the graves on top of a knoll, I don't know if you noticed in that picture, and they just rolled the concrete ones down into the arroyo. So they look more professional. I kind of like the old ones, they're kind of interesting. But the last slide really gets me every time I see it. It's Peterson's dog would not leave his graveside after the funeral, and that's kind of a real touching photo. So, and I always hear everybody, oh, yeah, it is real touching. Yeah, don't kill the dog. Ross Sloan. Now, I mentioned earlier, I'm going to get back to the Bronco Apaches.
Let me show you this picture
Sure.
real quick. They moved the old headstones back up.
Oh, they put them right across from them.
Yeah, and then there's a fence around it now.
Oh, that was neat, because I was thinking they should go in that arroyo and pull them. They did that.
Yeah, they did.
Well, okay. Rick, how many generations your family here? If anybody wants to see this
5.
photo, yeah, you could, 5 generations, just go to Rick Upshaw. Yeah, Ross Sloan, okay, right there. His ranch, his house was in Cochise County, Arizona, in Skeleton Canyon. He ranched on both sides of the canyon. Now, 1924, that was the last raid of Bronco Apaches in the United States. That's how long they were around. And if you think that's fairly recent, the last recorded raid in Mexico, they think was 1937. So that's when the Broncos, either they died out, they were hunted and killed, they kind of took kidnapped Mexican women for wives, and then the bloodline, they assimilated into the Mexican culture and all that. But anyway, the last raid in Mexico, about 1937, they think, and boy, that's fairly recent. Just goes to show you, history isn't always that old. So the Bronco Apaches, 1924, they come and hit Ross Sloan's ranch. Now, this is the final surrender. I'm sorry, it's not. It's the surrender in Cañon de los Embudos in Mexico, about 20 miles south of the border. And these are the surrender negotiations. Here's Geronimo right here. It's a very famous photo. Every book on the Apaches, every biography on Geronimo has this photo reprinted. Here's General Crook here. And everybody in here is identified, okay? And the famous photographer from Tombstone, C.S. Fly, was there at Cañon Embudos and took like 18, 19 photos of the surrender negotiations. And where's Craig? Craig's got a wonderful PowerPoint on CS Fly, all about his life and photos. So this particular surrender attempt, the Apaches agreed to surrender, but then they reneged. It's a long story. They escaped. The final surrender in Skeleton Canyon was 6 months after this, okay? But let's see the next slide, because this is Adonitze. And Adonitze, they think he was a cousin of Naichi, the chief of the Chiricahuas. He was one of the ones, when I mentioned earlier, when the final surrender, they were traveling from Skeleton Canyon to Fort Bowie to be sent off to Florida in imprisonment. He and 5 others and a baby changed their mind at night and escaped. They were the nucleus of the Bronco Apaches. So that's how it happened, okay?
That's a modern name, right? That's not hereditary.
Bronco?
Bronco, they weren't called Bronco.
No, I've seen it used, but sometimes it's used
Like
different.
Chiricahua, Apache, and
Their tribe was Chiricahua. Bronco just designated them as this group that didn't surrender, yeah. So anyway, so getting back to Ross Sloan, here he is with his wife Zelda and their little boy Ralph. And Ralph just passed away in his 90s a few years ago. Okay, this is a photo of Skeleton Canyon taken during the period when the incident happened. And what happened was the Broncos came and they got into Ross Sloan's corral, and they stole his herd of horses. Now, Ross was home. He was by himself, but he was really sick. Okay, now, this was 1924, so Hidalgo County was a county now for 4 years, so they had a new sheriff by the name of Oscar Allen. I want to show the ranch house. I think that's little Ralph there. If you've been to Skeleton Canyon, it's closed now, and they have a lock gate. It's private property. But back when it was open, that ranch house always amazed me. This photo, like, even the wagon wheels are still there, and it hasn't changed much at all. Here's Oscar Allen. He's kind of a. I heard a lot about him. He was like a real tough guy, and he didn't take anything. So he was contacted by Ross Sloan, and he got together a big posse, and the posse showed up at Ross Sloan's house. Ross Sloan initially was in the posse, started going east through Skeleton Canyon, and then Ross felt so sick he turned around and went back. He let the posse go. The posse went on, and they were trailing these Apaches. They were pretty easy to trail with the horses. They went east, across what's now the Gray Ranch, and then south of Hechita, and over by Little Hat Top Mountain in the Alamoeco Mountains, down in that very corner of Hidalgo County. And the Apaches, having the high ground and being so close to the border, saw the posse coming. They slipped down into Mexico and were gone. But the posse surrounded that little mountain, and they caught one of the Apache women. And they had her there. And there was a discussion, what do we do? Well, do we charge her with, horse theft? They decided just to let her go. So she ran and caught up with the rest of them. But the posse recovered all the horses. And I've heard, too, that they stopped at other ranches and stole horses along the way. And one of the things they found was a riata. And there was an old gentleman who passed away, not too long ago, 6-8 months ago. He lived between Animas and Hechita by the name of Gene Chadbourne. And his grandfather was one of the posse men. And his grandfather took that riata. And Gene had it in his possession, and he let me hold that. And to somebody studying Apaches, that was like a holy grail. I thought that was so cool to actually hold the riata in my hands. So, okay, this is Ross Sloan and Zola. And if you haven't been in Skeleton Canyon, where the Geronimo Surrender Monument is, that's the actual monument, what it looked like. I think this photo was taken in 26 or something like that. And you could see it's just about up to Zelda's shoulders. If you go now, which you can, it's close, but everybody would take a rock as a souvenir, and it's down weight. It's almost completely gone, which is pretty sad. So, the Guadalupe Canyon Massacre. Okay, this is, let's state where it happened. Guadalupe Canyon is right where state of Arizona, state of New Mexico, and Sonora, Mexico meet. Beautiful place down there, and it crosses into both states. And in 1881, there was a rancher by the name of Bill Lang, and his ranch house is right about there. And it's on the Gray Ranch now. The building is still there, still has a roof on it too. And he was going to be moving his cattle through Guadalupe Canyon and on to, I think, Tombstone. Tombstone, Craig? Do you ever hear?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Craig, we went down in Guadalupe Canyon and did a little of the exploring down there. Well, they were camped for the night. And they got up early in the morning, and we're going to look at the names of the people who were there because they were ambushed by Mexicans. Okay. Now, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of them, 7 cowboys there, and how many? Yes, 7. And two survived. They were shot and wounded, but 2 survived. This is Lang, who had the herd of cattle. Newman Clanton, that's Old Man Clanton. That's the father of Billy Clanton and Ike from the OK Corral. Okay, Charlie Stowe, Richard Dixie Lee Gray. Dixie Lee Gray was Michael Gray's son, and Michael Gray, what famous ranch was named after him? The Gray Ranch. Okay, that's how it got the name, Michael Gray. And after Michael Gray lost his son, he sold the Gray Ranch. He only owned it for a little while, but it's kept that name just about forever. Here's Old Man Clanton, the father of Billy Clanton and Ike Clanton. Okay. And what happened was, if you read the accounts, they buried Dixie Gray, Jim Crane, And third one, we'll see in just a sec, on a knoll. They said a knoll right near the Gray Ranch, the main house. And there was an employee there who knew where that grave was. Well, Michael Gray's great-great-nephew lives in Dallas, Texas. And he paid to get a tombstone put on this grave. Let's take a look. That's, by the way, Craig, myself, and Dan Aranda. Jim Crane, yeah, Billy Lang, Jim Crane, and Dixie Lee Gray are all buried there. Now, the other two survived. What about Charlie Snow? Well, the accounts say Charlie Snow was buried where the massacre occurred in Guadalupe Canyon. So we went down to Guadalupe Canyon with a bunch of us, and we found Charlie Snow's grave down there. So that was pretty neat to see, and there's a close-up of the grave. So everybody's been accounted for. Now, remember the two who survived. One of them was Billy Byers. Let's take a look. Oh, here's Old Man Clinton. His sons exhumed his body in Guadalupe Canyon. He was initially buried next to Charlie Snow. Now he's buried, you can see it at Boot Hill Cemetery in Tombstone. You have to pay a fee to, the tourist thing. Okay, now, Billy Byers. There he is as an old man with his granddaughter on his lap. And his granddaughter, many of you know her as your neighbor, Glennis Hayes. Wow. How many knew that her grandfather went through all this? She'll tell you she'll tell you, Ted, if you ask her about it. So it's a pretty interesting story. Okay. T.R. Blunt. Now, I've been throwing a lot of violence and gore and death at it, but I figured I would end on one more positive note, right? Rick smiling. Okay, T.R. Blunt. I'm driving in my police car one time, and I see something on the side of the road. It looked like a block. Sometimes there's, what do you call the elevation?
Survey mark?
Yeah, like a survey mark, but it's the, like on the top of the mountains.
Geographic.
Yeah, the geographic mark. I thought it was something like that. I get out, and this is what it says. Oh, let's locate it. Let's see where it's at. Okay, it's right on Highway 9, kind of between Animas and Hachita. And I stopped and I walked over. It's right on the shoulder of the road. And this is what it says. T.R. Blunt, born here, 4/30/76. It's coming up, his birthday. I didn't know who T.R. Blunt was. I got online and checked all T.R. Blunts. I sent letters and got all these, letters sent back, no such address and stuff like that. I didn't know if that's a male T.R. or a female, a woman. And the historian in me, I'm trying to turn this into something really cool. Like Mr. Blunt's driving down the road and Mrs. Blunt's, 8 months pregnant, and she says, Mr. Blunt, I think the time, what do you mean, Mrs. Blunt, it's not 9 months. Well, I know Mr. Blunt, And so they pull over, and there T.R. Blunt's born and everything. Well, I forgot that 1976 Supply Smelter was there, and they had the little clinic with an ambulance, and Mr. Blunt was working at the smelter. Mrs. Blunt was on her way to the hospital. Back then, Highway 113 wasn't there. They had to go west to the town of Animas, north to Interstate 10, and then east to the hospital in Lordsburg. So that's why T.R. was born where T.R. was. And so, here recently, Randy Blunt and his wife, Jamie, came and found the spot where he was born on the side of the road. So, yeah.
You got in touch with him?
Excuse me?
You got in touch with him?
I called him, but I didn't take this picture. Yeah, so anyway. Okay, and that concludes my presentation. I want to thank you all for inviting me here today. Oh, and my wife would kill me if I didn't plug my book. If anybody's interested, they're $20 each.
Bill, you might mention that we did an article on them in the paper, and I've got a copy of it if anybody would like to see.
You have it with you now?
It's on my iPad.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There was an article in the Lordsburg paper all about finding the Randy Blunt born here and the contact with him and all that. See, Rick, why don't you stand up? If anybody wants to see some of the archives, Rick has on his laptop there. So.